Here we go. All right. So you're a few days into this sucker. It's what, January 6th? So if you started on January 2nd, you're a few days in. Now, first of all, I want to apologize. The lighting is terrible right now. So it just looks terrible. Simply because it gets dark a little bit early here and I have to have these like nasty fluorescent lights, and that just makes me look washed out and terrible. So I apologize in advance, but welcome everybody. If you're here, you probably know why you're here. And it's simply because this is broadcast number 1 for the 30-day intermittent fasting challenge. So I'm stoked to see everybody here. We've got a lot of ground to cover. We're going to talk about muscle building. We're going to talk about fat loss. But most importantly, I want to be able to answer questions, as many questions as it possibly can. So can everyone do me a solid and please comment where you're watching from, which a lot of people already are. And that way, later on, when I go through this, I can look at all the amazing people from just all walks of life, all corners of the world. So we've already got over 1,000 people on this broadcast, which means we are going to rock it. I want to hear just who is already having success. Okay, I mean, I know we're just a few days into this, and sometimes just having a regimen and having a structure is all it takes to rock and roll and have a lot of success with this. So if you're already seeing some success after just 4 or 5 days into this, go ahead and just comment the word success. I'm excited to see how many people are probably already having success. Success does not have to be measurable by your fat loss, doesn't have to be measurable by how much muscle you've put on or anything like that. If you are simply feeling good and feeling like you're conquering a little bit more of, I don't know, sort of those mental barriers that you encounter, well, then you are successful. So I want to wait for a few people to join in here because the audience is climbing. Okay, we're at 1.3 thousand people here at a little over a minute into this broadcast. So I know that that number is going to grow. So before I start getting into a lot of the details and answering a lot of the questions, I want to make sure that we've got a good number of people here. See, now we're at 1.4 thousand. So lots of people already saying success. Wow, holy cow. We've already got people saying they've already lost a few pounds and it's just a couple of days into this. Now, I do want to make sure anyone that's watching this, you may or may not have seen the videos that I've posted over the last couple of weeks talking about this challenge. So forgive me for those of you that are aware. I do have to just, regurgitate this information. This is a 30-day intermittent fasting challenge that started January 2nd. However, if you're joining us now, you can start at any point in time. There will be links to the video that I posted that broke down the entire meal plan, as well as the day 1 video that motivates you to get started. So the original video was posted on December 26th, which broke down the full diet plan, gave you the structure, gave you the meals. And I know it's somewhat limited, but you have to understand when I'm creating a meal plan that's going to go out to the masses, I can't exactly create something massive because, well, everyone's going to have lots of different questions. It's easier to make it granular and detailed. And if people need specific substitutions, we've got that Facebook group where people can get the help in there. Wow. Okay. Lots of comments already. Okay. We've already got someone down 11.6 pounds. Just another person down 6 pounds. Wow. This is awesome. 10 pounds in 5 days. See, the reason that you're dropping weight so quick isn't because you're just magically losing all this fat. Let's be realistic. A lot of it could be water, but what does that mean? Is that bad? No, it's not bad if you're losing water weight. See, water weight will end up resulting in official weight loss later on down the line. Now, what I mean by that is if you are holding excess water and you lose that water by changing your diet and eating cleaner, obviously that water wasn't supposed to be there. And it was probably there in the way of cellular inflammation. It was probably there causing problems throughout your entire body. So that water leaving is usually your first step towards being able to lose more weight. Okay, so don't be disappointed if you lose a bunch of weight in the beginning and you're thinking, oh, it's just water weight. No, that is a great sign that your body is well on the way. Now, you may have noticed in the thumbnail, I was holding up this old picture of myself. I don't know if you know this, but I keep this picture on my desk. I wish you could kind of see. I can't. So here, like if you look at my desk, there's my desk for real. Okay, I legitimately have pictures of myself, what I used to look like. Okay, and the reason that I do that is simply because I honestly want to be reminded of why I'm here and why I'm continuing to do what I do. So the reason I'm even showing you this picture is simply because I want you to remember why you are doing this. This was me at 290 pounds, or 285 actually, so closer to 290. All right. This was me before I started intermittent fasting, before I started playing around with keto, before I started getting focused on metabolic health and metabolic adaptation and just being metabolically flexible, as was this one. This was me sitting with my grandparents at the time. Okay. So people will look at that and say, well, you're not like extremely overweight. No, I was extremely overweight. This was about, I don't know, 15 pounds into my weight loss journey already. Okay. And this picture was at my sister's wedding. Okay. That's a friend of my sister's. She was at the Air Force Academy. I mean, you see the acne on me? You see, I was very unhealthy. Okay. So this is the reason that I am here. And I know you've all heard me talk about that. And I know you've heard me mention that before. And I know it gets a little bit old just hearing me talk about that, but it's motivating for you and it's motivating for me. So anyhow, I do want to make sure that we get into some questions. So where I want to start is in the Facebook group that we laid out for this intermittent fasting challenge. I know some of you aren't there, and that's fine. There was a post that was put up that listed out a bunch of questions. So this way I can get started with some basic questions. And then as we get going, I can answer more of the questions that are coming through live here. So let's go ahead. I'm opening this up really quick. Okay, so let's start with this first question. Please address when to take your vitamins and minerals while you are fasting. From watching some of your videos, I'm thinking that minerals should be taken in the AM since you need the electrolytes for fasting, and vitamins after dinner since you're not fasting at that point. Jennifer, that's a really good question. And more or less, you're right. You can honestly consolidate all your vitamins, all your minerals, and everything to the evening time. It all depends on how far you want to go. I personally think that if you just add a little bit of salt to your water throughout the day when you're fasting, that you're getting plenty of minerals. You're not going to deplete yourself of minerals that fast. You're not going to get so depleted in magnesium, potassium, and everything throughout a 16, 18-hour fast. Is it going to help you feel better? Yes, it will. Okay, you could definitely put yourself in a spot where you have more energy because you have a little bit more of that electrical signal that's actually able to work. Okay, your brain needs electrolytes, right? You need that sodium-potassium balance. But do you have to do it while you're fasting? I think it becomes a lot more critical throughout a longer fast. So don't concern yourself with trying to load up vitamins in the morning and vitamins in the evening. I would highly recommend just take your vitamins, take your supplements all in the evening time. That way you can just consolidate them and make it super easy that way. Anything that is going to be considered an antioxidant or anti-inflammatory or anything like that is going to quell the effects of your fast. So there is a particular study, I don't remember where it was published right offhand, but it took a look at the effect of vitamin C on a fast. See, vitamin C is supposed to be an antioxidant, or it is an antioxidant. Well, believe it or not, when subjects consumed vitamin C, it negated the effects of the fast, because the effect of the fast is all a result of stressing yourself and letting your body develop the ability to adapt to stress. If you give yourself a supplement or a vitamin that makes that easier, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So you don't want to take any kind of antioxidants, any kind of vitamin C or anything like that during your fast. You actually want your body to be somewhat under stress. The only thing that is somewhat okay is going to be the salt. And if you wanted to take your potassium, your magnesium, you could do that too. But I would say in this case, just consolidate it to the evening time. Let me go through some other questions here. How does wine affect insulin? Can we still have wine or alcohol during this challenge? And I understand I did not address that during the introduction videos, so I appreciate that being brought up. I would highly recommend for these 30 days that you just keep it out of the equation. Why? It's not doing you any good. And remember, your liver is going through such a massive cleaning and detox phase during a fast. Do you really want to burden it more? Because once you do consume food, your liver is taking a little bit of a hit, right? You've gone for a period of time without eating, your liver's getting a chance to clean. You've got hepatic autophagy, liver autophagy, where cells are recycling in your liver and things are working great. And then all of a sudden you're bringing a bunch of food in. That's already stressful in the liver, and alcohol is going to be even more stressful. What we have to remember is acetaldehyde, which is what comes from alcohol, and basically what is alcohol when it's in its broken down form in our body, is highly, highly toxic to the liver. Yes, it is a poison. And that means that the liver is going to prioritize the metabolism of that. And I'm not trying to scare people away from alcohol. I'm a realist, okay? I understand, I get it. But we have to remember that our liver is going to prioritize the metabolism of whatever is most toxic because it wants to get rid of that. So that means the food that you eat potentially takes a back seat, right? It sits on the back burner because your body's having to metabolize the alcohol, okay? So I would highly, highly recommend that you just do not drink during this challenge. But if you absolutely feel like you must, then I would recommend triple or quadruple distilled spirits or something like that, or drinks of that kind, simply because they're easier on the liver. Okay, plain and simple. Hey, can I ask everyone to hit that thumbs up button really quick? Hit that like button. It would really help out a lot. Okay, great, guys. Just that way it just ranks the video up so people that are doing this challenge can make sure that they don't miss it. We got 2.2 thousand people on this broadcast right now. So I know that this challenge is definitely rocking. And if you are just joining us, make sure you jump back to the December 26th video that links out to all of the meal plan and everything like that. And I'll make sure that I put it in the description below after this video is done. Okay, let me open up some of these other questions. I'm going to apologize again for those of you that are just joining me. Lighting is terrible. I'm having to deal with fluorescent lights right now because it's starting to get dark outside. So my complexion looks terrible. I promise I don't look this unhealthy. This is like terrible lighting. Some of these other questions, forgive me here. I'm opening up the list of questions that came through. Okay. Oh, someone says, can we drink the almond pre-bed drink with raw cacao instead of the Greek yogurt? It's less carbs, so it might be okay. Yes, you absolutely can do that. Bridget says, can I take a pre-workout on a fast? I would recommend making your own pre-workout. And what I mean by that is getting some black coffee and then getting a little bit of citrulline malate. Okay, so that's CITRULLINE, new word, malate, M-A-L-A-T-E. Will someone type that into the chat box so that people can see it? Citrulline malate. Okay, inexpensive, get that on Amazon, and you want to take between 1,000 to 3,000 milligrams of that. I know that sounds like a lot, but trust me, it's not that much. That's going to give you a little bit of that pre-workout energy. And then you can also try a little bit of what's called beta-alanine, B-E-T-A, new word alanine, A-L-A-N-I-N-E. If someone could type that too, that would be great. That way people see it. And mix that with your coffee. It's not going to taste amazing, but it's an amazing fasting-friendly pre-workout. I actually have some videos that broke down that full recipe, so that way you can try that out. Highly recommend you give that a shot. This is not a product plug by any stretch of imagination. It really isn't. But one of the things, if you do like something that's a good pre-workout, Highball energy drinks aren't bad. So they're unsweetened. They're just straight up carbonated water with organic guarana, organic caffeine. Super simple, super clean. Matt asks a really good question. He says, how do you control overeating after breaking a fast? Also, is there a limit to the amount of pink Himalayan salt to drink while fasting? Matt, first of all, regarding the salt, I wouldn't recommend having a ton of it. You don't need to totally load up on it. But just remember that if you have an excess of sodium, your body's going to excrete it. But you do need to keep that balance with potassium. And it's very easy to throw your electrolytes out of whack. So I would recommend just the small amount that I mentioned in the meal plan. You don't need to go overboard. I know sometimes it gives you that sense of satiety and makes it feel like you're satisfied a bit more, but no need to really add a bunch more. In fact, sometimes I like to go fasting days where I don't have sodium in just to drop a little bit of excess water weight. And then, the other question that you had was regarding the, whoops, looks like it kind of cut out there. Oh, there we go. How to combat the overeating. Usually if you have that small meal first, it's going to help you out with that overeating. And the reason is because you're spiking your insulin right with that initial break fast meal. Then it's going to plummet. Your blood sugar is going to plummet, and you're going to eat that larger meal. If you have your timing set properly, you should be fine. What I would very, very, very highly recommend that you do is set a stopwatch of some kind so that you know when to go ahead and eat your next meal. Where people run into a problem is they break their fast strategically, and then they forget to eat their next meal. And 2 hours goes by and their blood sugar just drops so much that they eat anything and everything. All right, so it ends up just raiding their pantry. That's where you run into a problem. Set a timer. The most strategic time for you after breaking a fast, or is really after you eat that first meal, between that and your next meal, okay? We got a lot of people asking some questions here, and I noticed there's been a couple super chats, and I know I just want to make sure I at least touch on some of these. What about keto coffee? Neil doesn't, keto coffee technically would break a fast, so I don't care if you do it on your non-fasting day in lieu of breakfast. You could absolutely do that. Now, when they're talking about keto coffee, they're talking about where you take black coffee and you put a little bit of coconut oil or a little bit of ghee or a little bit of grass-fed butter and you mix it up. That's called keto coffee or fat coffee. That is a suitable replacement for breakfast. but it is not fasting friendly. I repeat, it is not fasting friendly. So if you are on your fasting day, do not do the fat coffee or keto coffee, because there is still 200 to 300 calories in that sucker. By all means, that breaks a fast, okay? So be careful with that, but have it as totally fine as a meal replacement. Someone asked, when does autophagy start? So for those of you that don't know about autophagy, it's the cellular recycling process where your body recycles old proteins and old organelles and components of cells, things like that. It's always happening to some degree in our body. It's on or off at different rates of time. And it might be on in one section of the body. It might be on in the liver while off in another part of the body. It might be on in the skeletal tissue or the muscle tissue or anything like that, where it's off in another spot. So it's always on and off. So it's hard to say when it officially starts. Okay, but most people start to see an influx of hepatic autophagy, liver autophagy, after like 12 hours. Okay, that means you're going a long time without eating, so your liver starts to go through autophagy. Liver autophagy is generally what we measure because that's the most active organ. So if we have autophagy going down, well, it's not the most active, that's a lie, but in terms of metabolically speaking, it's very active. So if we're abstaining from food, then that's going to go through autophagy. And when that starts to occur after 12 hours or so, that's really what we're after. I know we've got lots of questions coming in. Let me go ahead and go through this list. Sorry, a lot of people had posted questions before, and I want to touch on some of these. Exercise program, that's a good one. People want to know about the exercise piece of this. Just like when I did my keto challenge, I highly recommend that you keep exercise the same way that you were exercising before up until at least week 2 of this challenge. So what does that mean? I'm just going to pick on some random hypothetical names. Let's say we've got Bob. I'm sorry if your name's Bob. Let's say you've got Bob. Bob was not working out prior to this challenge. I would want Bob to continue to not work out, at least for the first week or 2 of this challenge. Why? Because I want Bob to be able to get the benefits of the fast and the nutrition portion first, and then add the workouts into the mix. Why? Because if we add it all at one point in time, we have no idea what is eliciting the best response. Is it the workout? Is it the fast? It makes it really hard to determine. There's too many variables. Now, let me give you another example. Let's say we've got, I'm going to pick on the name Mary. Okay, sorry again if your name is Mary. Okay, Mary worked out like an animal in December. She always worked out like an animal. And then she started this intermittent fasting protocol, and she's trying to figure out how she should work out. She should continue to work out the way that she normally does for the first 2 weeks. Okay, 1 to 2 weeks, I should say. Why? Because we don't want variables. I don't want her to cut off training. I don't want her to add more training. I want her to keep the training the same way because I don't want to jack up that variable. I want you to know that the diet is doing the job. And then when you start to decline in terms of your results with the diet portion, then you change your actual workout portion, okay? So what should you be doing? What's your best workout? What should you be doing next week? I highly recommend, if you haven't thought about this already, that you focus just mainly on weight training. Why? Because you're in such a caloric deficit with fasting that you have such an adrenal load. Your body is taxed because it's stressed out when you're fasting. So I don't like the idea of you adding a lot more stress by way of intense amounts of high intensity interval training. I know I talk about that as a benefit, there's large benefits of that, but I also recognize that a lot of you have not fasted before, and this is new to a lot of people. So I don't want people to just jump into that and really beat their bodies up. Weight training is going to be a little bit easier on the body in that respect because you're not totally jacking up your cortisol. You're just kind of eliciting metabolic stress on your body, kind of at the individual muscle level. And so I'm really sorry, this lighting is killing me. Hang on. There we go. Man, it looks terrible. Who would want to take health advice from a guy that looks like me right now? It's like so washed out. I'm really sorry, everybody. Go through a couple more questions here. So I would like to test ketones with my keto meter. What time of day do you recommend to test while doing this intermittent fasting challenge? I actually have done some videos where I talk about that. I highly recommend that you test throughout the course of the day, simply because it's going to vary throughout the course of the day. So don't test at just one specific point in time, because if you test at just one specific point in time, then you're never going to be taking into account the fact that some days you may have fasted the day before, and some days you may have not eaten as much the day before. It's going to constantly change. And you're always going to see ebbing and flowing levels of ketones in your blood. So by all means, please just measure consistently and try to keep a journal of your ketone levels. Because I think what you'll find is that as you do this challenge, you're actually going to have less and less ketones in your blood after about 2 weeks, simply because your body's going to get fat adapted. And what happens when you get fat adapted is you don't need as many ketones in the blood because your body is becoming efficient at utilizing them. I know we've got some chats that have come in that I want to try to answer here. How do you suggest working apple cider vinegar into this plan? Is 2 tablespoons before bed and 2 tablespoons before breakfast okay? And will it break the fast? It's 0 calories. I am okay with apple cider vinegar on this. I do not think that it breaks a fast. I will say that if you are someone that's doing a strict long-term fast, I would not have it in there. But for the sake of the 16-hour, 18-hour fasting, yes, I would say that you're okay to have it first thing in the morning and then also before bed, especially if you are doing the carb plan. If you're not doing the keto plan, then you're definitely going to want to try to add it into the mix whenever you consume carbohydrates. So I would have a tablespoon each time you have carbohydrates just to help with blood sugar control. Okay. Another question. Will, thank you for the kind words. Okay, now people are saying the lighting's fine. I know, but you have to remember when I do these videos, like I open myself up to so much scrutiny. You would be surprised. Like there's a couple times when I've done these live broadcasts, the lighting's terrible, and I end up with screenshots being posted on Instagram from haters, I guess. That'll just be like, oh, look at this guy. He looks pale. And it's like, I can't control the lighting in here. It's so dark in here right now. And I probably should have set to do these a little bit earlier in the day, but I wanted to establish them at a time of day where people could maybe watch them after work and stuff like that. So apologies there. Okay, someone asked a substitute for avocado. This is a question that has been coming up a lot. What can we do in the way of avocado? Avocado is a universal food because it can be mashed into so many different things. It can be made into guacamole. It can be made into a dessert. That's why I put it in there. It's universal, but the monounsaturated fatty acid profile and the oleic acid fatty profile of it is so good. The next best fat is going to be olive oil. Now, olive oil obviously isn't as universal as it is like an avocado, right? You can't just make guacamole magically from olive oil, but you can get olive oil from, in fact, olives. Olives have a couple of carbs in them, but if you have a 1/4 cup of black olives or a 1/4 cup of Kalamata olives, you will still get some of the fats. What I would recommend doing is take some olives and make like a tapenade or anything like that with olive oil. That's going to be the closest fatty acid profile you can get to the avocado. If you've ever had eggs with like an olive tapenade, it actually tastes really good. And I know that's obscure and that's weird, but I'm trying to get you the right fatty acid profile because avocados are very unique. In fact, just so you know, I have a cool video coming out tomorrow talking about the benefits of avocado because I feel like it still reigns supreme as like the superfood. It really is amazing. So we have some other questions that came in. Oh, someone asked about 1 meal a day. I strongly discourage people from doing 1 meal a day on this plan simply because of what I've talked about before called metaflammation, where the body has so much in the way of nutrients coming in at one point in time from one large meal that it can really actually cause chaos in the body. So please, 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 if you're doing 1 meal a day, strongly consider doing 2 meals a day. And you don't have to change much. Just have that one meal that I talk about when you break a fast, just that one small meal, okay? Then later on, then have your larger meal. That's all I ask you to do. If you do 1 meal a day, please, that's all I ask you to do. I'm just concerned that if you fast for 18 hours and then you try to get 2,000 calories in or 1,500 calories in one meal, you're going to do some metabolic damage. I'm just concerned with that based on the research that I've seen. Okay, I love the fact that 1 meal a day is so powerful for people, but I just don't want people to do long-term metabolic damage. Okay, there's something that I wanted to talk about too. I just want to, now that I've got an audience of 2,500 people right in front of me right now, the purpose of science and the purpose of research is to test and challenge your own hypothesis. Okay, so there will be times when I try different things to try to break the control and try to break what I know works or what I have seen work. So what I mean by that is I know keto works. And I know this is fasting, but just hear me out on this. I know keto works because I've done keto and fasting for 10 years. But I also know that if I stick with one thing and I never challenge it, I will never be able to know if it really is the right way. So the purpose of science is to always challenge your hypothesis to make sure that it really is valid. So I go through periods of time where I'll add carbohydrates into my ketogenic diet to see what happens, to see if it makes me feel worse or to see if it makes me feel better. And what's interesting is over the last couple of weeks prior to this challenge, I added some carbohydrates back into my diet strategically. Did I get stronger? Yes, I got stronger. I felt stronger in the gym, but my mental clarity did not feel as good. So I tested against my hypothesis. And yes, I found that it is broken when I look at the physical strength side of things, but the ketogenic diet, when it comes down to the universal piece, is very, very powerful with cognitive function, endurance, stamina, overall energy. Point in saying that is you are all here right now because you are experimenting with yourselves. You are trying something new. You are following my lead on it, but you guys are all pioneers. And what I can do here is I can't even, there's a saying, right? You can give a man a fish or you can teach a man to fish. Well, I was just talking with my buddy, Nick Norwitz, who's over at Oxford University. And he said something really powerful that stuck with me that I want to share with everyone else. Okay. You can give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. You can teach a man to fish, and quite frankly, he'll eat for a little while. But you have to get him excited to fish. And what I'm doing with you guys is I'm getting you guys excited about changing your lives. I'm getting you excited about changing your diet and implementing new things, because that is the only way that you will ever be able to grow and be healthy beyond what we're doing here. I will not be here forever. I might not have a YouTube channel forever. YouTube might shut me down because I talk about the wrong thing. But it is my job today to excite every single one of you to do different things with your diet and find what works for you. And that's why with this intermittent fasting challenge, I'm indoctrinating so many different things for people. I want you to get excited. So anyhow, based on that, can everyone that is excited about this, whether you're seeing results or not, just comment the word excited and get those around you excited. Let's generate some hype and get people amped up about this, because honestly, this is our lives. We can take control and we can honestly feel good again, because I don't want to look like that anymore. Okay, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be this person. Okay, look at that. That's not happy. Anyhow, point is, you guys are awesome. So let's go through some more questions. Lots of people asking about substitutions. Honestly, if you guys need some specific substitutions, go ahead and comment foods you want substitutions for down in the live stream box. And I'll try to answer those. People are asking about, can we use any kind of skinny syrup or artificial sweeteners in our coffee? On a fasting day, I highly recommend that you don't, simply because I just want to keep it as clean as possible. People are saying, okay, what if I want to build muscle? What should I do? Should I do anything different? There's a couple different things that you can do if you want to build muscle while you're doing this intermittent fasting challenge. One of the things that I recommend doing is pushing your workout right up to the end of your fast. So what I mean by that is, if you're supposed to break your fast at, let's just hypothetically say 2 p.m. Well, I would want you to try to work out right before that time period, simply because you're going to get a double whammy with your insulin sensitivity. What I mean by that is, at the end of the workout, you're very insulin sensitive. Okay, you can definitely, you're going to, what you consume is going to get utilized, but you're also at the end of a fast. So you're double insulin sensitive. And I have found that I get the most just significant response when I push my workout to the end of my fasting period. So you might be wondering, well, how the heck do I do that with my schedule? I can't work out in the middle of the day. You can take the meal plan that I laid out and shuffle the time periods. And once you get adjusted to what I'm talking about in the meal plan and everything, it's not that hard to shuffle it. Like, you can say, okay, instead of fasting from evening to evening, I'm going to fast from morning to morning. And go through, I'll eat my breakfast or whatever, and then I won't eat the rest of the day. And the point is you can take everything that I laid out and just shuffle the time period. So that way you can still work out in the morning and break your fast after your workout, if you want to do that. Someone says, will Chromium and CoQ10 cause extreme headaches? CoQ10 can cause some headaches just because of the mitochondrial efficiency. Basically, it can trigger a little bit more energy that potentially is in your brain. So you kind of get these sharp little pains in your brain. But usually not. I mean, that usually, and you're definitely not going to see that with Chromium, at least from the research that I've seen. Whey protein substitute with Greek yogurt. Yeah, you could definitely do that. That's a good one. Remember that Greek yogurt is going to be slightly different protein compilation than whey is. Whey is protein that has really been isolated, whereas Greek yogurt is a full spectrum protein all the way coming from dairy and everything like that. Does deer antler velvet break a fast? Technically, there's a couple of calories in it, so I would say consume that after your eating or in your eating window. Someone says, I work in the medical industry. I work really early in the AM and work out at night. Is this still okay? Absolutely. In fact, that works out to your advantage. Sorry, I'm trying to read some of these questions. They're going fast. Todd Hall says, does fasting kill off bad mitochondria? Well, I wouldn't say it's bad mitochondria, but it does go through, there is something called, they've kind of coined it mitophagy. Mitophagy. So it's autophagy that's occurring at the mitochondrial level. So the mitochondria is what is called an organelle. It's a portion of the cell that, it's just a portion of the cell. It's an organelle. So it's like an organ within the cell. And that mitochondria can recycle. So if that mitochondria is older and dysfunctional, then it can absolutely change and recycle to become stronger. So it doesn't like get rid of bad mitochondria. It just helps recycle to make stronger, better, more efficient mitochondria. Because a lot of times we'll even have genetic defects that can make our mitochondria dysfunctional depending on how our diet is. That's why people that have a long-standing history of working out, a long-standing history of eating clean, usually can end up just harnessing energy better because their mitochondria overall is healthier from a genetic standpoint. Let's see, sorry, lots of questions. Someone says, go hit that like button. Yeah, if you guys can, continue to hit that thumbs up button, that like button. And guys, also, just in case you didn't know, I still put a link down below for ButcherBox. But if you expand the description, I also put a link for my newsletter. So I have like an eating out cheat sheet. So if you ever want to just have a little cheat sheet to bring with you when you're going out to eat, that way print that sucker out. So I call it my life optimization tactics. So that way you can click on that and then also join my newsletter. I'm trying to make sure that, I don't know, I have ways to get content out to people, even if YouTube goes away, because we've all been seeing some of these changes with YouTube happening. And I want to make sure that I'm able to still keep in touch with everybody, even if YouTube does change its rules and shut down channels. I hope they don't, but okay, let's go ahead through a couple more questions here. Which protein is used to best in this journey? Whey protein isolate or pea protein isolate? Okay, so I'm honest here. People think that just because I talk about pea protein in a lot of videos that I'm only pro pea protein, that I don't like whey protein, and that I just am a sellout because I work with Sun Warrior. That's not the case. Whey protein has its place. Whey protein is going to give you a bigger insulin spike. So whey protein is really good post-workout. There are some problems with it though. Whey protein is inflammatory just by nature. Okay, it's dairy. So what that means is when you break your fast and you have whey protein, is it going to absorb quick? Yes, it's going to absorb quick. And it could potentially help you build muscle. But you're not going to feel nearly as good as if you did if you had, say, pea protein. But are you going to get as much potential muscle utilization out of it? Maybe not. Okay, so it's all a balance. You have to test yourself. I love whey protein when it's in the right, clean application. For general meal replacement, I think pea protein is the best because it's less inflammatory load on your body, in my personal opinion. That's just my experience with it. Let's see, here we go. Get some other questions. What can I do when my body wants to buy the feelings of weakness, therefore making me eat a carbohydrate? Tough one there. I would usually say drink some salt water, to be honest. That's always helped me. Whenever I feel like I'm salt water or a little bit of green tea, but I understand in the evening time, you can't just have a bunch of green tea. I'm trying to find some of these other good questions. And then I'm going to go over just to the questions on the YouTube channel here. So just give me 1 minute. Here's a good question. Joanne Ramos says, insomnia the past 3 days, barely any sleep, runny nose as well. Keto flu, I need help. Magnesium and melatonin taken today, but still awake. Okay, if you're having sleep issues on this challenge, first of all, it is probably just your body adapting. It is fairly normal. So here's what's happening. Remember that when you are in keto or anything like that, you don't have high levels of insulin. You have very low levels of insulin. And the insulin is what allows things to get into the cell. Okay, so if you have low levels of insulin, it means that you're not able to get the amino acid known as tryptophan into your brain as well. What does that mean? Well, that simply means that tryptophan, which is what converts into serotonin and melatonin eventually, isn't able to get into the right part of the brain, making it so that you don't feel the need to fall asleep. Taking melatonin can sometimes help you with that, but in my opinion, because you're not having a natural feedback loop with melatonin, it's probably going to give you a hangover-like feeling and not something you really want to do. So what I would recommend doing, and I know this sounds crazy, is have like 10 or 15 grams of carbohydrates before you go to bed. And I know that sounds insane because we always come from the school of thought that you should never have carbohydrates before bed because it's going to go right into storage, but that's not necessarily true, especially if you're in a situation where you're not sleeping. Who cares if it kicks you out of ketosis for 5 minutes? If you're sleeping, that's a win. I would much rather have you kicked out of ketosis for an hour because you had 15 carbohydrates than not sleep. If you're not sleeping, your blood glucose will be higher, and then you'll ultimately be out of ketosis longer. So if you're having trouble sleeping, 15 grams of carbohydrates from a clean form is fine. I usually say have some berries, to be completely honest. Have some strawberries, have some blueberries. That way they're low glycemic. They'll help you, cut the edge. I, a lot of times, will have yogurt with a couple blueberries in it just to help me fall asleep. It's not that abnormal. It happens a lot to people. Okay, some other questions. Someone says, I've been losing hair badly whenever I do fasting. What should I try? Zinc is the main one. And I know that you mentioned that you take zinc, but if anyone's having issues with dry skin or brittle hair while fasting, take a zinc supplement. 30 to 50 milligrams is probably all you need there. Sorry, I'm coming to other questions. How does Tom's prepare his meals to keep it interesting so it's not the same every time? Honestly, just changing up the spices does a lot, but also changing the kinds of fats that you cook with. You're fully welcome to go ahead and shift your coconut oil for, say, like a beef tallow or some kind of healthy lard or some kind of, it changes the flavor a lot, believe it or not. The fatty acid profile changes significantly with the kind of oil that you cook with. So that's just a fun way. What can you substitute for meat? That's a good question. If you're not eating meat, then what can you be doing? The pea protein shakes are usually going to be a good strategy. Hempe, so it's like tempeh, but it's made from hemp. I recommend going hemp instead of tempeh because tempeh is going to be high in soy, and even if it's fermented soy, it's still going to be hard on your body. So go for the hemp in that case. Another question that's been coming up, are there any other food options or do we have to stick with this? I would ideally like that you stick with this for at least the first week. And then after the first week, feel free to change up some of the proteins, okay? But the fats and the carbohydrates, I would really prefer if you kept them the same, simply because they are there for a reason. Proteins, we have a little bit more flexibility with. I would like to see people utilize a little bit more red meat versus more white meat. That sounds crazy, but the studies are now showing that white meat has so much more in the way of the inflammatory omega-6s. It has so much more in the way of the things that are really going to mess us up as far as estrogen, soy, everything like that. If you need to sub a meat out, I would prefer that you go for like a lean red meat versus adding more chicken. But I also understand that some people don't like steak, and I get it. So chicken, turkey, whatever. But I just do think for the first week, you should try to keep it, even. If you're starting to have some digestive issues, I recommend that you throw in some like sauerkraut or some kimchi. It does help with the proper, gut recolonization. Here's what's happening. Our gut bacteria thrive on a diversity of foods. So in its very essence, the ketogenic diet limits the diversity of foods, which therefore means that we have less gut diversity. Okay, our gut biome shrinks, right? That sounds like a bad thing, and in a lot of ways it is, but if your body's adapting to that, then it's fine. But what I do recommend is that you try to introduce things that are going to support the healthy gut bacteria. Okay, so if we take in things like sauerkraut, if we take in things like kimchi, we do add some additional bacteria into the gut, and as long as you're eating your veggies, that's going to continue to grow. Probiotics come from things like sauerkraut, from probiotic tablets, from kimchi, from fermented and cultured foods, yogurt, stuff like that. Prebiotics are the fiber that grow the probiotics. So prebiotic fibers come from things like asparagus, they come from veggies, and those are like the short chain fatty acids that help our gut biome populate. So what we need to do is we need to populate the gut with things like sauerkraut, things like kimchi, and then we need to supplement with the veggies to be able to help that grow. So think of it as planting a seed, like with the sauerkraut, and then watering it and fertilizing it with the prebiotic veggies and stuff like that. So asparagus, artichoke, Just a couple to name a couple. Onions are actually really good. Garlic, really good prebiotics, excuse me. That's another thing that you can do is add a lot more garlic, add a lot more onion. I just don't recommend that you do that right when you break a fast because that can be pretty hard on the gut. Okay, so people are saying way too hungry on the non-fasting days. That is common. And what's usually happening is your body's burning fat is what's happening. The fact of the matter is when you're hungry, it means your ghrelin levels are going up, and it means that your glucagon levels are going up and your insulin levels are going down, which is a very good indicator that you're probably burning some fat. So I highly recommend that you embrace the hunger because that is what is helping you get to where you want to go. 6 days in total fast, shooting for 31. That's awesome. Is erythritol okay? Erythritol is okay, not on your fasting days, but it's okay to have in meals on your regular days. Let's see here. Can I snack on non-fasting days? That's a very good question. I highly recommend that you do not snack in between meals because in between meals is where the magic happens. Try to break the thought process of snacking to rev up your metabolism. It doesn't quite work like that. Okay. We need to eat and then we need to take a break. And when you eat and then we need to take a break because it is that period of time where we give the body a rest that our body actually gets to upregulate the hormones that allow us to burn more fat, at least potentially, right? Hormone-sensitive lipase gets activated. Glucagon gets activated, which allows hormone-sensitive lipase to get activated. Norepinephrine, epinephrine, all these things elevate in between meals. So we spike our insulin when we eat, and there's no fat burning occurring while we're eating. I hate to break it to you. And then we don't eat, and we burn fat in the little valley between meals. So even on your non-fasting days, I highly, highly recommend you just do not snack. Keep it strict. I would rather you add a little bit of food to your scheduled meals than fast. In fact, I would rather you eat 100 extra calories with your breakfast, lunch, and dinner than snack on 50 calories between the meals. Literally. I would rather have you consume slightly more calories, but have it in distinct, clear periods than eat lesser calories throughout the course of the day. People are asking about when the best time to work dried seaweed in. I would say with meal 2. Okay, meal 1 you can do it right when you break a fast, but meal 2 is probably a good strategy. Okay, simply because you've already gotten that first meal in, your blood sugar is going to be kind of stabilized, and you're going to be able to get the utilization out of the selenium and out of the actual nutrients there. Okay, so one of the benefits of we can get the iodine from the seaweed, so that's what we really want. We want that to get circulated. I know a couple people have been saying they feel bloated. A little bit normal, not during your fast, but it's normal to feel bloated after you break your fast. And that's simply because your gut biome is in a little bit of dysbiosis. It's going to take some time to adjust. So if you are feeling bloated after you eat, some of the things that I recommend you do are reduce the protein content. And if you are doing the pea protein, consider reducing that by half or substituting it for something else. Some people do not do well with pea protein, and it's simply, who knows? I don't even know why, honestly. Some people just don't do well with it. Other people thrive on it. A lot of times the bloating comes from just eating too fast right when you break a fast too. So try slowing it down, pacing it. Also try having some bone broth a little bit before you break your fast, and it could help you immensely. You can also utilize meat right when you break a fast. Again, just keep it clean and keep it simple. Down in the description, you'll see there's a link to ButcherBox. If you guys, that's one of the best ways that you can give back to me for doing this challenge. I know a lot of people are grateful, and I appreciate that. But ButcherBox did sponsor this whole challenge in terms of making it so the meat was affordable for people and things like that. So call me a sellout, call me whatever, but in order to do this challenge, it needs some support. So there is a link down below. You guys can check them out and get them, meats delivered right to your doorstep. Super, super inexpensive compared to most, and it's super convenient. So big thank you to them. And honestly, you may or may not understand how kind of the internet world works, but I do have to give them a huge thank you because they've made this possible. I love every time I talk about a sponsor or something, like 200 people drop off the video. It's so fun. Anyhow, a lot of people are saying, tell ButcherBox to ship internationally. I totally get it. I wish they would. Labneh versus yogurt. Chris, super good question. Labneh is it Lebanese? What? I can't remember what culture it is. Very good, high quality dairy. It's like concentrated Greek yogurt. If you can get your hands on labneh, yes, please do have it. Guys, I've got to go ahead and hop off here. My wife just texted me and she needs some help with Tommy. He's a crazy, crazy little toddler. So my wife is almost 6 months pregnant. We've got our second kiddo due here in May. and getting to a point now where I'm going to have to be a little bit more all hands on deck helping out with Tommy. So guys, please make sure you're keeping it locked in here with all the videos. Please give this video a share, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a link down below for the day 1 video and also for the meal plan video so everyone can see it. And please also in the description, sign up for my newsletter just so that I can keep in touch with you guys via email too, so I can let you know when there's new videos, because remember, YouTube might be changing their rules a little bit. If you have any questions that come up between now and the next video, please write them down so that we can answer them in the next broadcast, which is going to be next Monday at 4 p.m. I might try to hop on a little bit earlier to save some daylight too. You guys rock. Thank you all for being here. See you soon.